Great Camp Sagamore has been operated as a nonprofit institute for 50 years now. Their historic tours let the public see how the Vanderbilt family spent their summers on Sagamore Lake. Their programs bring participants together to commune with nature, enjoy the arts, and build community. Great Camp Sagamore is a National Historic Landmark with 27 buildings where guests dine, stay, sing at campfires, dance in the barn, and enjoy the bowling alley. Great Camp Uncas, also a National Historic Landmark, is just 2 miles down the dirt road from Sagamore. It has a similar complex of rustic buildings and has often hosted nonprofit personnel for educational and celebratory events. The camp, surrounded by forest and looking out on the shore of Mohegan Lake, is an ideal place for people to recharge and imagine new strategies. Ted Riehle is the camp caretaker, also known as the superintendent, at both Sagamore and Uncas. He sat down in front of the massive stone fireplace at Uncas to discuss some of the challenges involved in running and preserving a facility as complex as Sagamore. Making guests feel welcome and comfortable is a main goal for him.
We've got 27 buildings at Great Camp Sagamore. So when you look at the camp overall, from historic preservation point of view, there's a lot to be done. And how do you prioritize and come up with a plan to move forward with the preservation of a camp like that? And the same thing at Uncas. We don't have as many buildings, but the layout is the same. So a lot of the same challenges at both camps, from foundations and masonry up to recent roofing work that we've just done at both camps. Growing up, my grandfather was an old-time caretaker and builder. So since I was old enough to carry lumber, I was doing that for my grandfather. And through school and college, I worked at a lot of turn-of-the-century camps in the Adirondack League Club. So from a young age, I had a deep appreciation of these old camps. A lot of those camps were from the 1890s, and most of the work that my grandfather was doing was restoration type work. So at a young age, we were cutting and peeling logs for railings, different camp fixtures, that sort of thing, making furniture. And again, my grandfather was accomplished at that and did everything old school with chisels and gouges. I appreciated my grandfather's old school ethic. Before I learned how to actually do log work, I had 3 years where I was cutting and peeling spruce poles and my grandfather was building log railings. And it was at an old 1890s camp in Bisbee. And the owner was a fantastic guy and thought an awful lot of my grandfather. He had worked there for a lot of years, and so one day Albert came up and said, "Howard, looks like a good day to go fishing." And my grandfather said, "Well, I think you're right. I've been watching fish jumping out on the lake." So away my grandfather went, and the camp owner had a collection of guide boats down in his boathouse, and he took my grandfather out trolling. Albert didn't fish, but he rode my grandfather around Bisbee Lake. So he knew my grandfather loved to fish. And they went out for a couple hours, and that was a really neat experience. Probably one of the most satisfying projects that I did at Sagamore was building a new log gate for the guest entrance. Again, not a monumental project. When I came to Sagamore, I really thought that I was going to be doing more hands-on, and I was really excited about the log work because my grandfather had schooled me in doing that type of work. The reality of this position is that there's so many things that need to be done. I find that I don't have the ability to do that type of work as much as I would like to. So when we needed a new guest gate, I had the materials. I kept finding myself pulled in different directions throughout the course of the day with things that were popping up. So I just took 2 days, came over to Uncas, and I built the gate in the carriage barn. I was here alone, uninterrupted. I had my grandfather's tools, and I got it done relatively quickly, and I got it over and got it installed. But recently, we had done a fundraiser, raised funds to restore the main lodge porch to its original condition. We used a local artisan from Indian Lake. I think he did a fantastic job in the log work to replicate the original railings. It was surprising to me the number of guests who had been coming to Sagamore for 25, 35 years. Didn't realize that on the lakeside of the main lodge, the second and third floor railings are original, 1897 railings. And if you look at the solid backdrop to the cedar log spindles, it was painted to resemble birch bark. And the fact that that has endured, it's on the leeward side of the building, so it doesn't get the prevailing winds and rain. We're so fortunate to have that. And to be able to restore the lower railings and on the lawn side of the building to replicate that, I think is just fantastic. I think part of what makes these camps special to me is the history and the public's awareness of the history of these camps. There's been an awful lot of literature written about these camps. I'm continually finding books, buying books to continue to learn more about the history. This area was extremely unique when William West Durant started to develop this area back in the 1880s. And I think that's one of the things that make these camps so special. Any of our different programs could completely fill camp. So we may have 70 or 80 people in at one time. And all those people have different expectations. Some people have been coming to camp for 30 years, and there's things that they like about camp that they don't want changed. They want to remain the same. And there's people that have never been to camp, and you need to take the time to explain, let people know how things work, what opportunities are at camp, different things that they can experience, and that's a fun part of the job. A caretaker's role is not necessarily just about the mechanicals and the upkeep and the day-to-day maintenance. I really feel that one of our important roles is to create an atmosphere. You want to create an experience for the guests, to meet people and create that sense of experience, I think is hugely important. And you have to enjoy that. You can't just act that. You really need to feel that part of what you want to do is to make people feel welcome. I think one of the biggest parts about being a caretaker is understanding that you've made a commitment. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's something that you're invested in and you really need to enjoy. At times it can be hectic. It can be overly busy. But at the end of the day, it's enjoyable. Sometimes you wonder how you're going to get through the day because different things pop up. But when you've made this commitment, it's a beautiful place to live. And when you see guests that are enjoying themselves, other staff that you're working with are happy, camp owners are happy, it's really satisfying.